Good evening and welcome to a special edition, early edition of the Barre Beat podcast, located right here on Main Street in Barre at the Fly on the Wall production studio across from Nelson Ace Hardware. Tonight we have two special ladies with us that are currently running for school board seats. Over here with me, we have Alice Sparrow, who is running for the Barrytown seat.
3-year. Barrytown 3-year seat.
Barrytown 3-year seat. And just across the way is Sarah Helman, who is running for the Barre City seat. So we should have decided first, but who would like to start first in as far as introductions go?
Yeah,
Sarah?
Alice can go.
Sarah?
Alice?
She's pointing to you.
Oh,
Yeah.
I always say age before beauty, but
Oh, goodness.
okay.
Oh.
I'm kidding, Alice.
So
Age and wisdom trumps youth and guile.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So let's hear it, Sarah. Let's tell us a little bit about you, who you are, where you're from, and what you're running for.
Okay, so my name is Sarah Helman. I grew up in Barrytown. I currently live in Barre City, and I've sort of jumped between the two a couple of times, but my heart's always been here in Barre. I'm a former educator, teacher, and I spent some of that time teaching here in Barre City, and I am running for school board. I feel like this is a great place for me to serve my community, and education is something that's very near and dear to my heart. Many of my family members were teachers. So yeah, that's me.
That's you. Well, thank you very much. And we will scoot over here to Alice. And Alice, why don't you tell us a little about you?
Well, I am Alice S. Farrell. I always travel with my S. And I've lived in Barrytown for 12 years now. I spent 32 years in education on the other side of the lake in the Adirondacks, and came to Vermont for, I think, what was the ultimate position for me anyway. I came to Vermont as State Director of Special Education for the state of Vermont. And when we were settled here in Barrytown and it was time to retire, the Act 46 was just coming into fruition, and I volunteered my services to be on the Act 46 Consolidation Committee. Spent my time with that, lobbied hard for Barrytown's wishes, and when the consolidation was mandated, I ran for the board and was elected to the Barrytown board. I became chair of the Barrytown board and now serve on the consolidated board as vice chair and member of that board.
Wow. So you have a long history already here in Barrytown on the board.
Yes.
And you're hoping to maintain that seat. And you obviously have a long background in education as well as all of these boards and the things that can sometimes plague some of us. I will put it that way. It gets complicated.
It is
it's
complicated.
not as easy as some people may think.
But it is hard. It can be hard. But we who serve on in those positions and on those boards don't do that because it's easy. And I steal that line and remember that line from a fellow resident of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where I was born and lived for my childhood, is that we don't do these things because they're easy. We do them because they're hard. And hard excites us, and it makes us want to work even more to get the job done and make it better for everyone.
Yeah. How about you, Sarah? What is your thought as far as what we're looking at and what's coming up, what you need to, you're going to need to work hard, and there's a lot on the table right now. What are your thoughts and what is your background as far as education goes?
So I actually I got my undergrad degree in education, and I got a teaching job right out of college. I taught for 3 years in Bethel, Vermont, and then 6 years up here in Barre. And both of my parents are teachers, so I grew up in an educator household. It was always weird to me when I first discovered that other parents don't have the summers off. Because that was just all I knew. You know, we went on vacation as a family, and when I learned that other kids don't have that opportunity, it was out of my realm of knowledge at that point. But that's certainly something that really made me want to get into the education field. Not the summers off, but just being around teachers, and I like being around kids, and I taught middle school, which some people have told me I'm crazy, but I absolutely love middle school kids. They're really really neat. It's a really neat age group. So I did leave teaching just for a change of pace. I needed to kind of step away. But then I spent nearly 8 years in community mental health. So I have a pretty significant wealth of knowledge with the mental health field and those needs that folks have. So,
and what made you want to step in and run right now?
Well, so I started going to the school board meetings almost a year ago, and just to kind of see what's been going on and get involved in my community. And I've participated and asked questions and made comments during the board meetings. I think that we need to get back on the track of education. I don't hear a lot of conversations about education at the board level, and I think that's where I want to see us go, and I want to be a part of that, and I want to serve my community.
How about you, Alice? What made you decide that now, maybe even now more than ever, was the time to stick around and stay the course?
Well, first of all, education is my life. It has always been from the time I started out as a teacher, and through administration, and finally in major in central office administration. And the part that I had always seen as interesting and informative was that I would be attending board meetings as a member of the school community. And then here in Barre and Barre Town, I had the opportunity to be a member of that board rather than just a member of the school community, because that is a whole different perspective on education, that you're really looking at the policy, you're looking at the budget, you're looking at how the schools function, and what the success and achievement rates are for the students. So that really is something that interested me, and I now had the time to be involved with that and follow it closely, do the studying, do the reading, do the research, and bring that to the board, which is the directorship of any district. And I thought that was very important to bring that background knowledge to that so that we can move our community forward. Education is so dynamic and so changing right at this moment that you have to keep up with every little nuance in it and know what's going on. And I enjoy doing that. I enjoy sharing that with my peers, and I enjoy sharing it with the individuals in the school community as well, because just because you're on the board doesn't mean that you are totally removed from the faculty, the administration, the students, the families. So you share that information with now the constituents so that we can all move forward together.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of boards and budgets and all of that stuff, we all know that right now the budget is a huge sticking point. If you right now had the reins, if you were, how would you try to steer the ship one way or another? Where do you think we're at?
Yeah, I think where we are is we need to really confirm with the community that even though 1.5% looks very small on today's market, we have a $54 million budget with a 6.6% or $6.6 million surplus. So the question that I continue to bring forward is, can we pay the bills? And the answer is an overwhelming yes, we can. That even though there have been some dramatic cuts offered by the superintendent, I don't agree with those cuts, because we have had cuts before in our budgets here in Barre, and as we came into the budget season, all of those cuts were put back in because the money is there. And that's what needs to be reaffirmed with individuals who have been somewhat drawn in to this scare tactic, as I would call it, that we are suddenly going to have nothing in our schools. And we won't. We will have everything that's there, and I won't, and the board won't allow those cuts to take place. So we're okay, and people need to understand that in very simple terms rather than the complicated percentages and this, that, and how much is this and how much is that. That there, right at the moment, for example, there's well over $10,000 in this year's book budget. So teachers and staff and administration that need to look at purchasing items need to look at the budget right now and see what's left and do some good financial management, because that is a very important piece of school budgeting, is the management of the money, not just leaving it in pots all throughout the year, but moving around to where it's needed. So that's why I say that I won't allow these cuts to take place. The board won't allow these cuts to take place, and we will move forward with everything that our students need to be successful.
And same question for you, Sarah. If you had the reins right now, where do you think we need to go? Where would you steer the ship?
Well, I mean, at this point, the budget's been approved by the board, what was put forth by the finance committee, and at this point, I think we need to just let the voters speak. We've heard from the school board that the money's there. We can pay the bills, as Alice said. We can take care of any teacher salary increases that come with the negotiated contract when that's completed. And, so I became a homeowner 2 years ago here in Barre City. And I think for the first time, I'm realizing how these school budgets and municipal budgets affect me as a taxpayer with the property tax. And I think it's really important for us, for anyone that sits on a school board or judicial board like this, to be able to take into account the taxpayers and the school's needs, and balancing that in a way that is going to work for everybody as best we can. We're in challenging times right now with inflation, and I think that the taxpayers of Barre City are pretty strapped, and I don't think that most folks here can really shoulder much more of an increase. So, but like I said, at this point, it's on the ballot, and folks can vote how they feel is necessary. And I would encourage you, if you don't understand it, to reach out to a school board member, because I know they've said multiple times that they're willing to sit down with somebody and explain it.
And how about the current issues? Do you feel that it is a position that a school board member should be in to interject with some of the disciplinary issues that people are talking about that are going on, and they want the school board to fix it and fix things. Is it the school board's place to step in and do any of that?
That's a yes/no question. No, it is not the board's job to be involved with the day-to-day issues of any school in the district. We need to know about what the issues are so that we can work appropriately to mitigate them, to solve them. But what we do need to know from our administration is that there is a plan, and I think we're, referring to some of the behaviors that we've seen beginning with last June and some carrying through this year. What is the plan that the administrators and the school are enacting to make sure that students coming into that building know right from the get-go that this is a place of learning, and learning includes being well-behaved, being kind to your peers, being kind and listening to your teachers. Those are the things that we want to see the plan for, so that we can make sure that that plan is working, and maybe if it needs something, do we need and I shudder to use the word in Barre City, but do we need a consultant who could possibly help us with that? Is there someone on staff who might have some additional information about working with behavior and I'm talking about not individual, I'm talking about behaviors in the entire building, and what the expectations are for the building. We have a program called PBIS, and are we using that? Are we using it correctly? In the jargon of education, it is with fidelity. Are we using that with fidelity? Are we seeing results? And if not seeing the results, then maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and look at how it can be tweaked. So that's what the expectation of the board is to know that the schools are running well, not to run the schools. Because that's not our job to be there day to day telling people what to do and how to do it. Ours is to give them the tools to carry that through so that the students and the families and the teachers and the administration all know what is a sign of success for our students in that whole behavior realm.
How about you, Sarah?
Excuse me. I agree with Alice. The school board's job is not to micromanage the day-to-day operations of the school. What I've already said publicly is I would encourage the board to create a temporary ad hoc committee to look at the behavior policies and the handbooks of each of the schools, and to gather some data that doesn't bear any child's name or so that it's kept confidential, and to look and see, are these policies working? Are the procedures in place working? And if they're not, like Alice said, maybe we need to go back to the drawing board. Maybe we need to just tweak the policies that are in place already to help. And this all comes back to the students, right? So being able to have a positive learning environment for the students that's free of disruption, and where they can be successful.
And we have a couple of questions here. So one way of, addressing this is actually kind of one of my questions anyways. Do you feel that right now Barre City, Barre Town offer a fair pay for their teachers? Are they in line with other schools and where they need to be?
As far as I know, they are. I haven't actually looked at the current salary schedule, but my understanding is that they're in the ballpark for sure. And the teacher salaries are negotiated, so that happens at the negotiations table between the union and the school board representatives. So the board doesn't other than that negotiating process, they don't get to stipulate what teachers get paid. It's an agreement.
Because we are being asked, why is it that you're not teaching anymore? Was it lack of pay?
It was not lack of pay. Absolutely. No, I actually took a pay cut to step away from teaching, and just kind of explore some other options. I think, when we get really bogged down in things and it's time to just kind of take a step back, and I felt like that was the time in my life to do that. And then I got really almost 8 years of really great experience in the mental health field. And do I miss teaching? Absolutely. I really enjoyed working with the students. I had great support from the parents, and but life happens, and that's just where what we have to deal with. So yeah.
How about you, Alice? What are your thoughts as far as where we are on the pay scale?
Pay scales are always a tricky situation, because as long as any pay scale is based upon property taxes and what is available in a community, you have to look at it from both sides. You have to say that this is what the community can afford. This is what our teachers deserve to be paid. That's a balance, and that's where the negotiation piece comes in, that members of the negotiating committee bring that information from the community, from what the current state of the economy is in the community. They bring that to the negotiations table, and they hammer it out at that point. Fair is also a huge descriptor, a huge issue. What's fair in Washington County? Is that fair in Chittenden County? Is that fair in Orange County? And all of that, looking at that whole picture. So to sit and say yes, it's fair, no, it's not. That really, again, is a negotiated piece. We've been doing very well with maintaining our salaries here in Barre Town in Washington County, and I think that still is yet to be decided as we move through this year, because we are currently in negotiations, and I'd just like to see how that is going along and wait that out.
And we all know that there is, hiring anybody for any position across the state is not easy. So to automatically assume that these cuts that are maybe being proposed, or the smaller budget, is going to
it isn't a smaller budget.
Well, that's what right. It's not
the budget is going to be greater than it was last year.
Greater than it was last year, but smaller than what the administration was asking for.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean that you can't hire. There's not going to be room for the positions that are out there that need to be filled. That doesn't mean that those positions cannot be filled.
And the question of hiring is not just one for Barre, Washington County, state of Vermont, New England. There are 100,000 teacher openings across the United States today.
Wow.
And part of the problem with that is that individuals such as Sarah and myself and other people who are dedicated to the field are not choosing that dedication. They may be entering into what they call pre-service education programs, which are college programs that lead to a teacher licensing or a teacher teaching degree, but in the eventuality, they're going somewhere else. They're going into computers. They're going into healthcare. They're just going, which is also lacking in employees, but still the same. The ranks of teachers are not being filled as they were in years past. So the choices for people who are educated to be educators are far greater than they have ever been before. And in many cases, they're taking those options other than being in schools.
All right, let's see, Sarah. The per pupil spending, that is the current per pupil spending, how do you think that goes along with or doesn't go along with the current test scores and the scores being the lowest?
Well, I don't think that there's much correlation there between the two. So, we're not doing so great on our test scores, but throwing more money at that isn't necessarily going to fix that problem. So, quality education is something that we should be striving for, and it goes back to curriculum. It goes back to social, emotional, and the behavior issues that we're seeing as well. I think that shutting down the school for, I actually don't know how long Barre was shut down, but it was at least a year, I believe, and that certainly had a big impact on our students, both academically and socially. And so there's some catch up for sure, but really focusing in on what's important and reading, writing, math, those sorts of things, and helping our students to achieve the best they can.
And how about when it comes to the low test scores and the current climate of back to just discipline, just all the way around? They're absolutely connected, mm-hmm. and home environments. Any thoughts on whether or not you would like to see some sort of committee or board formed that could maybe aid parents in the community to help them better help their children?
Absolutely. I would love to see some community resources available for parents. What I do know though is at least at Barre City School, they have literacy night and math night and opportunities for parents to come with their children and see what they're learning in the classroom as far as those subjects are concerned. And that's a great place to ask for some help. How can I best help my child with this subject? Or, math is a hard subject for a lot of kids. And, as a parent, you don't have to be a mathematician to be able to help your child with their math homework. And reaching out to the teachers and, the staff in the school that work with your children is the best way to know how best to help them. But utilizing those opportunities, literacy night, et cetera, to do that. And outside of the school, I don't know if there's other resources available for parents in that arena, but I wish there were. I'm not really sure how to make that happen.
Well, I think also the SBACs, the Smarter Balanced Evaluation Program that was instituted across the United States, really was a contrived situation, and the results were certainly not what people expected. They certainly made it look as if our students in the United States were really struggling and not doing well and failing and all of those good things, and we're 34th in the world and all those other ways of recording it. But what we have here now, because the SBACs are going away, that schools are now being more attentive to assessment and evaluation on a local level. So we have a really good strategic plan here in the Barre Unified Union School District. And I know it is because I kind of shepherded it into from the beginning. I worked with Winton Goodrich, who was our consultant at the time, to get that strategic plan in place, and the community contributed to that strategic plan. And we have that, and a goodly portion of it consists of, excuse me while I cough, consists of local assessments on a grand scale and local assessments in the classroom on a daily, weekly, semi-annually basis. So that is really a good thing for us as a school district to see how our students are really doing on achieving the success that they need in what I like to refer to as the Big Five, and Sarah kind of touched on them, but the Big Five are reading, writing, computation, listening, and speaking. So if we're doing well locally on those Big Five, our students should be able to go out in the world and meet any challenge that they foresee, because they will be successful in those areas. And our teachers are doing a very good job at instituting those local and broader assessments. Here comes water. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so that's very important. So we're doing that, and we shouldn't be frightened by national reports, because we're doing programs that will benefit our students and our families and our communities.
So, as somebody who is running and wants to stay in the game here for the long haul, how can you tell the parents that you're here and you're ready to fight for the children and the children's education?
I'm here and I'm ready to fight for the children and the children's education.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. That has always been my attitude toward education. I think I've expressed it before in a form that said I think about it as the four sides of a desk, because I've been a parent, I've been a teacher, I've been an administrator, and now I'm on the fourth side, which is the school board. And that's really important, to be able to look at it from that whole around the desk perspective, and to know what it has been like to be at the forefront. Just going in reverse order, arguing with the State Board of Education when we were presented with votes that did not agree what their plan was. So arguing for our students at that point, continuing to lobby and be up front for students with special needs, because that has been the entirety of my education career, to always make sure that those students are getting what they need. The students with special needs are getting what they need to be successful, to learn, and as a parent, to make sure that my children, I have two sons, that my two sons were always in school, having an appropriate education, getting things done for them. And so it has always been in my DNA to do the best for our students, our families, our community.
And how about you, Sarah? Same thing. How can you pitch to the parents right now that you're going to fight for their kids and their education?
I mean, just that. I plan to fight for the best education our students can have. Quality education is what gets them started on their path to life and adult life, I guess I should say. I was a product of Barrytown and Spalding High School, and I have been able to. I have 2 degrees. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree, both in the education field. And I know how important it is to have those foundations to be able to, and even if you did choose not to go to college and pursue maybe a trades career or whatever it might be, the foundation of primary and secondary school is important. And I really feel that Barre schools can be a really main highlight of our community, even more so than it is. So,
And so one concern right now, and I've actually heard this concern several times over the last few weeks, and also one of my questions and a viewer's question is, what about the current state of the books that we're teaching out of? I mean, some of the books have my name in them or other parents' names in them from late 80s, early 90s, being in high school and in even elementary school. And with the new methods of teaching, the new math, things like that, that weren't a part of those books at all, what are your thoughts of what we're doing, what we're going to do about that, how that can change, and are those books really aiding our kids if they're not taught that way anymore?
Can I speak to that?
Go for it.
That is a concern of financial management. That every year there is money set aside for books and then divided up over departments or grade levels and whatever, the way in what's called the budget lines. And those budget lines really need to be monitored. And when you say, well, someone needs to monitor them, of course, Mr. Someone is always out there, and everybody presumes that someone else is doing it, Mr. Someone. But that is a piece that folks in the building have to look at and say, what do we need? Where is the greatest need? We solve that need. We look at the next need. So if, for example, right at the moment, right now, as we sit here, there is over $10,000 in a book budget line that maybe just needs to be shuffled around from one unit that isn't using it to another unit that needs it, then buy the books and go ahead. Feel free as a board member, as a community member, as an educational administrator. I would say buy those books now, because if that's what we need, then get them for the students.
And it's being said that the money has been there. The books could have been bought
right
many times over.
So order them up. And my interesting story about books is I taught in a large city. I taught in the city of Memphis. And there were areas of Memphis that were considerably more moneyed than other areas. And what would happen was they would take the books from the more moneyed areas and send them downtown into the high schools and the schools downtown. And the schools in the more
affluent,
proficient or the outskirts. You can drive from 26. You can drive for 26 miles from the river east, and you're still in the city of Memphis. So you can still be in the city of Memphis and live on 50 acres. Mm-hmm. So that area, those areas there, and they would take the books from East Memphis and they would send them downtown to this high school in downtown Memphis. So they got the secondhand books. And I always found that to be an abhorrent practice. And so when I see someone, and I saw Dr. Carter at the board meeting with that worn-out calculus book, and literally the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, because that should not be happening. But it's not happening because somebody is saying you can't have those books. It's the process. It's the financial management. So go with the financial management. Spend the money. That's what it's there for. And buy the books. And if it isn't a book anymore, if it's a computer program, if it's a software program, buy the program. And then buy the paper to print out the needs that the students have.
How about you, Sarah?
I couldn't agree more, Alice. Yeah, I mean, I was at that board meeting where that very ratted math book was shown, And I sort of said to myself, why haven't we addressed this in the last decade? Because it was probably, I forget how many years she said it was, how old the book was, but it was probably around when I was in high school. And I've been out of high school for 20 years. So how did it get to that point, I guess, is my question. Why weren't books bought 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 5 years ago? Where's the disconnect? Because we certainly shouldn't be having to use those books for our students. We should be able to have, and the money's there to have up-to-date books.
So if you could implement a connect, what would that connect be? Would it be somebody within the board that oversaw such a thing? Would it be somebody within the administration, or something totally different altogether that only oversaw the
think
materials?
I think it's the principal's job, and correct me if I'm wrong, but
it's an administrative practice.
It's an administrator's job to be keeping track of the the budgets in your building. If you have a math budget and a history budget and a languages budget, and you should know what those are, and the department head should also know what those are, and be able to prioritize the needs of the department to get the supplies that are needed. So I don't know where that disconnect happened, but I was the band teacher, and I decided at one point that the band jackets that we had were as old as the school were, and it was time to upgrade and get some new band jackets. And I made a pitch to the administration and said, look, I think we should upgrade our band jackets and get something a little fresh, and was able to make that purchase, and they found the money in the budget to do it. And, did we sacrifice maybe on some other smaller things? Yeah, I think so, but nothing that was going to affect our year in learning music. So it's, you just have to prioritize what's needed the most.
And what about currently? We have some pretty hot topic button issues, and we all know that. And what do you feel needs to be addressed right away?
You asking me?
Yes.
I mean, in the course of time that I've been going to the school board meetings pretty regularly, the behavior issue is a big topic for me. And I think that just comes from my educational background and my mental health background, because I know a lot of behavior issues stem from trauma and difficult home situations. And so, the behavioral issues, I'd really like to see our scores go up. I mean, and I want to kind of readdress this again, because standardized tests I don't think they're the greatest measure of how our school's doing, but they're the only measure that we have available right now, other than, the local teacher assessments that are happening in the classroom. But I think we can do better, and I think we can find a way to help our students succeed and achieve better test scores. I sort of lost my train of thought. Sorry.
That's okay.
So we've got behavior, and we've got education, and I think another issue the board is facing right now is transparency. And I think it's gotten a little better, but still there's a lot of information that's not being shared with the public. There have been several FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests for information, and I don't think that should really be necessary. I think that information should be out there. Transparency is important for an elected body. So
maybe when we talk about discipline issues, that we're also talking about some of the adults in the realm of everything as well. There's, I mean, that has kind of been made pretty clear over the last couple of months. You have to admit that it's been heated, and if you take a seat, you're going to be right into an immediate boiling pot.
Well, but let's think about that, because I don't think that it's a bad thing to have disagreements and to have debate about certain things. You know, the school board's not just a rubber stamp and go with everything the administration says. And I, you know, to an extent, we have to ask questions, and we have to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to represent the taxpayers. And, you know, the administration is really advocating for the students in the schools and the teachers and the staff, and the board has to keep that in mind, along with the taxpayers and the people that voted to put them in that seat. So I don't think it's a bad thing to have disagreements and to ask questions. And, you know, are people going to get heated? Sure. But I think we're all very passionate about why we're there, to do the job of a school board director. But that's one thing that I said in the last meeting. There was a budget discussion, and there were some mean things said and some strong words and whatnot. But when that discussion was over, and most people left the meeting, but I stayed, and I watched the board discuss policies that were in their second reading. I watched them, have other conversation or topics of conversation, and I watched a very collaborative group of adults that got stuff done. And it was sort of unfortunate that everybody else that was there during that budget discussion wasn't there for the collaborative work that the board does, and on a regular basis. So, you know, nobody's going to agree all the time, and that's part of the process, is to ask questions and see things from multiple sides, so that you can make the best decision for the school, and the taxpayers and all the entities that have a stake in the ground.
How about you, Alice? There's some hot button issues
right
now,
and
you've been right in the thick of them.
I have. I've been in the thick of it, and one of the things that I have always prodded the board for is leadership. I think both leadership at the board level and leadership at the administrative level. We have agendas for meetings that are 24 miles long, 164-page board packets that come out. And by the time you get through it, and then there's a meaty piece that's at the end, everybody's brains are fried. And the fact that sometimes there's a feeling on the board that leadership is working against us. Private emails being sent out to rustle up people, to rile them up, to come and basically insult the board. I'm not beneath being insulted. I've been insulted before and probably will again. But the piece is, the role of leader is extremely important in any organization. And I go all the way back to Tom Peters was the prime suspect in the leadership milieu as I was coming up through college. And his thing was in search of excellence. So, and my belief is all aboard for excellence. And that means all, and that means our board leadership, our school leadership. We have to prime everything with what we do for excellence. And when you start working against that agency or that organization, that's not excellence. And that breaks my heart. So I think that we need to look at that. We need to look at why we're doing this. Individuals all know why they're sitting on this board. It's really not for power or prestige or anything like that. It's service to the community. And to serve that community, you can't be nasty. You can't be visceral. You have to really balance all of that with what your task is. And if your task is leadership, then be a leader and put things together so you're not drowning out people's voices, you're not over talking, you're just doing what needs to be done and as a leader. And that is, I think, what more than anything else, what the board needs right at this time is some really solid leadership. And from that will come the transparency and the truthfulness and the community involvement, because people will be attracted to a pleasant working environment to get things done. And I think that's extremely important. The other pieces that I think that we need to really think about is with the budget, that one of the things is that we talk about with schools that a huge effect on education and learning is poverty. And with all of the budgets, the city budget, the town budget, the school budget, the cost of fuel, the inflation, people not having jobs, that we really have to be cognizant of doing a budget that doesn't push more people into poverty, because then that just continues the cycle. And education is, Horace Mann. All the way back, they beat Horace Mann into your head if you're a student in Massachusetts. I go back to that. But anyway, and just take note that I have left Massachusetts and I did not turn to dust and blow away, as is the feeling in the Commonwealth. But anyway, but the piece is that education is to bring people out of poverty. And so we want to supply that to so that they can read, they can do math, and they can achieve in an adult world. So leadership, transparency, and not pushing people into poverty to continue that cycle are extremely important for a board. And for me, that is extremely important for me, because I do not want to see my friends and neighbors having to give up their homes or move in with relatives to afford a school budget.
Yeah, basic education.
Right.
Okay. So we have just over 5 minutes left. So I think that there are other questions that I know that you ladies will be more than willing to go back and look and answer if you can. And if you are not watching now, but you catch this later, go ahead and ask your question. And I'm sure the ladies will keep up with the post.
And we both have Facebook pages.
Yeah,
so
yes,
anyone
check
who
out
is
our
on
pages.
social media and is on Facebook, I'll just give you mine. It is Alice S. Farrell for Barrytown, and Sarah, yours is?
Sarah for school board.
So any questions that you have, drop them in there. Sometimes we're delayed at getting them. There's a question that I'm still answering about special education, but the reason for that is that just this past week, many state directors of special education and the people from the Office of Special Education Programming have been meeting to determine how to make any necessary tweaks to IDEA in order to make sure that students IEP goals are met because there is such a significant lack, again, across the country of special education teachers and personnel.
Okay. And in closing, I want each of you to take just a couple of minutes and say what your goal is and why we should be voting for you. Go ahead, Sarah.
So I really I'm very excited about the opportunity to serve my community, and education is so near and dear to my heart. It's in my veins. I love education, and I know that this is a really great place for me to serve my community with what I have to offer. And I hope that I would ask for your vote. If you haven't already, you can request a ballot from the city clerk, and or you can go to the polls up at the auditorium on March 7th between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m.
The auditorium, if you're voting in Barre City, and that's where
Barre
you're
City.
running.
Right.
Barre City seat. Okay. Is that it?
For now, sure.
All right.
And like I said, if you have other questions, or like Raylene said, definitely ask your questions. I'll keep taking a peek at what's been posted and do my best to answer them. And you can also check out my Facebook page and ask me questions there as well.
Any other plans for any meet and greets or anything like that, or
Not
are
currently.
You're settled in and you're ready for the
Yeah, I mean, ballots have gone out from what I understand. So, vote for me. And we're in the final stretch.
All right. And how about you, Alice?
This is my life. That's what sums it up. It's what I do. It's my job. I love my job, as I have loved my entire life in education and public service as well. And I just want to continue doing that, to bring what I can give to this community, to these students, to the families, to make sure that we are setting everyone up well for the future. And there's two parts to this, because I serve not only on the BUUSD board, but I also serve on the Career Center board. And being the proud owner of a graduate of what at that time was called the vocational school, who is now a career officer in the United States Army, I see the value in all aspects of education, and I want to give my time and my talents to that operation so that it benefits everyone. And besides, I have a lot of fun doing it, and I really like having fun. and I really I enjoy doing this, and I want to continue. So I guess the appropriate line is, vote for me on March 7th.
Okay. So, as I said before, that will conclude tonight's podcast. And if you have any more questions, please make sure you ask them. If you don't feel like you want to post those questions here, you can message directly through their Facebook pages. We will also post those links here on this show, but look them up, and we hope that let's see, did we get I think we got everybody. So yeah.
And thank you, Raylene, for having us. We really appreciate
absolutely.
it.
I loved having you all. I love doing this. It's what I do for fun. Yeah.
And thank you to Michael Booten, who turned over
turned over the reins
for a night.
Yep.
We appreciate that.
Yes. So, well, welcome, and you're all welcome anytime. So, thank you all.